What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Thursday, April 22nd. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 6-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Drew Holiday from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the Philadelphia 76ers, who have a good defense overall and they're middle of the pack defending opposing point guards. Drew Holiday has averaged 35.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. But he scored 49, 36, and 39 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 40, 38, and 33 minutes. He's projected at 36.3 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 40 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's 8,000 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game, and I like this pick because he scored 40, 35, 48, and 54 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the 76ers. So I like Drew Holiday here versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Another point guard that I like is Terry Rozier from the Charlotte Hornets playing the Chicago Bulls, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 12th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Terry Rozier has averaged 34.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. But he scored 40, 66, and 48 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 38, 39, and 40 minutes. So his minutes per game are way up, as is his production, and he's projected at 37.9 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5 times value, but I think he can score you 40 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's 7,800 FanDuel salary and 600 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 210.5 points scored in this game, so I like Terry Rozier here versus the Chicago Bulls. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns playing the Boston Celtics, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing shooting guards, but Devin Booker has averaged 37.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 33% usage rate. He scored 33, 54, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 43, and 26 minutes. He's projected at 35.8 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 40 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's 8,600 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 more on DraftKings. So I like this pick because Devin Booker has scored 46, 67, 22, 46, and 58 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Celtics. So that's excellent player versus team history. Vegas thinks there's going to be 219.5 points scored in this game. So I like Devin Booker here versus the Boston Celtics. Okay, another shooting guard that I like is DeMar DeRozan from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Detroit Pistons, who have the 12th worst defense overall and they're middle of the pack defending opposing shooting guards. DeMar DeRozan has averaged 38.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. He scored 25 and 40 fantasy points in the past 2 games, playing 31 and 31 minutes. He's projected at 38.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. He's $7,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $600 more on DraftKings. So I like this pick because he scored 45, 31, 49, and 58 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Pistons. So excellent player versus team history. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 216.5 points scored in this game. So I like DeMar DeRozan here versus the Detroit Pistons. Okay guys, let's take a look at the small forward position. So up to this point, haven't given you any value plays. So I'm looking at the small forward position. I think this is where I'm going to go for my value. So this first one's pretty risky here, but I think he can work out. I like Cameron Johnson from the Phoenix Suns playing the Boston Celtics, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing small forwards, and Cameron Johnson has averaged 17.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 23 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 24, 16, and 12 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 19, and 24 minutes. So he's projected at 18.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value, a little bit over 5 times value on DraftKings. He's $3,800 FanDuel salary, and he's $300 less on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, but I like that price on DraftKings, where it may be hard to find some value if Cameron Johnson just scores a tad bit over his season average. Actually, he only needs his season average on DraftKings to hit 5 times value. So I think that's a pretty safe play. And he played 30 minutes last game, so I'm hoping he can get close to 30 minutes again here tonight. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 219.5 points scored in this game, and he did score 24 fantasy points in his last game versus the Celtics. So I like Cameron Johnson as a high-risk, high-reward value play here versus the Boston Celtics. Okay, another player that I like, not a super value play here, but he's under 5K on FanDuel. I like Najee Marshall from the New Orleans Pelicans playing the Orlando Magic, who have the 5th worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Najee Marshall has averaged 16.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 18 minutes per game with a 15% usage rate. But take a look at his last 3 games. He scored 38, 18, and 43 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 34, 25, and 33 minutes. He's projected at 21.8 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can get you 26 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's $4,800 FanDuel salary, and he's $600 more on DraftKings. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 223.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup. So I like Najee Marshall here versus the Orlando Magic. Okay, just real quick, a couple of the other value plays that I liked is Patrick Williams from the Chicago Bulls. He's only $4,000 FanDuel salary and $4,300 on DraftKings. He's got a great matchup. He played 19, 32, and 27 minutes in his last 3 games, and he scored 20, 25, and 27 fantasy points. He's only going to need about 20 to 22 fantasy points to get you 5 times value or more. So I like Patrick Williams here versus the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, I thought I had a third value play here at the small forward position, but I think I would go with Patrick Williams or Cameron Johnson. Looks like Patrick Williams may be the safer play, so I'd probably play Patrick Williams on FanDuel and Cameron Johnson on DraftKings. Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like PJ Washington from the Charlotte Hornets playing the Chicago Bulls, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. PJ Washington has averaged 28.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. But he scored 31 and 47 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 35 and 34 minutes. He's projected at 30.9 fantasy points here tonight, and on FanDuel, that's 4.8 times value because he's $6,500 FanDuel salary, but he's $600 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. And he scored 25, 35, 38, 19, and 35 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Bulls. So I like PJ Washington here versus the Chicago Bulls. Okay, this next pick here is a DraftKings value play. You could play him on FanDuel, but he's just so much less on DraftKings. Just makes more sense to play him on DraftKings. So I like Daniel Tice from the Chicago Bulls playing the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Daniel Tice has averaged 21.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 24 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 12, 24, and 15 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 19, 28, and 22 minutes. He's projected at 21.3 fantasy points here tonight. Now on FanDuel, that's 4.6 times value because he's $4,600 FanDuel salary, but he's $900 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Probably one of my favorite value plays. Without the injuries, open up that last minute value. Probably at the time, one of my favorite value plays on DraftKings. He scored 21, 12, 21, 16, and 21 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Hornets. So I like Daniel Tice, especially on DraftKings, here versus the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Andre Drummond from the LA Lakers playing the Dallas Mavericks, who have a good defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Andre Drummond has averaged 39.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He scored 28 and 48 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 28 and 30 minutes. He's projected at 39 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.7 times value. He's $6,900 FanDuel salary and $400 more on DraftKings. He scored 53, 52, 49, and 53 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Mavericks. So excellent player versus team history. I think his price is still low enough where it gives you that monster upside. So I like Andre Drummond here versus the Dallas Mavericks. Okay, another center pick that I like here tonight, mostly on FanDuel, I like Tristan Thompson from the Boston Celtics playing the Phoenix Suns, who have a good defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing centers. Tristan Thompson has averaged 20.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 23 minutes per game with a 15% usage rate. He scored 19, 19, and 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 33, 27, and 24 minutes. He's projected at 21.9 fantasy points here tonight, and on FanDuel, that's 5.3 times value. He's $4,100 FanDuel salary, and he's $700 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 219.5 points scored in this game, and he scored 26 and 21 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Suns. So I like Tristan Thompson here versus the Phoenix Suns. If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.